Amigos de Usalamedia, estamos aquí de nuevo en Campus. Les habla Fernando Mendez. Dani Ramos dirige este programa y estamos en compañía de un distinguido personaje de nuestra comunidad, don Gilberto Gonzalez. Bienvenido.
Gracias, Fernando.
Welcome.
Orgullo, I'm glad to be here.
Well, it has been a long time in the planning. Mm-hmm. I think around the time COVID broke, I had you on my list, mm-hmm. and we had a brief contact at that point, and then it was like, COVID, and everybody went different directions. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But here we are.
Yes,
post-COVID.
Right, good.
So, I was looking at your profile. It's like, wow, is this one person or 10 people? So,
yeah.
The only thing I didn't see there was like real estate.
Yeah.
You probably have a license in that too. I don't know. But yeah, it's a very big, impressive resume. So,
well, thank you.
Congratulations. I mean, you have.
Thank you.
You have had a distinguished career in Philly.
Thank you.
You even ran for office.
Yes.
2018, 17?
That was the first time was for state rep against Malcolm Kenyatta. Mm. And the reason I ran is because I was angry that I had a state rep for 30 years. I never met him. And he gives the seat over to his nephew. And I said, no, this is Philadelphia. No, this can't. No, I'm so tired of this.
That's the classic nepotism, yes. Which is what it means.
Yeah, exactly.
Giving the next job to your nephew.
Exactly. It's like, so I got so mad. I said, you know what? We had no idea what I was doing. I had all kinds of cool people, crazy people helping me. We were able to get on the ballot. Pero, since we were kind of doing everything really late, most people were angry that I didn't market myself enough, but I just didn't have the time. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was a really good experience.
It's easy from the outside to criticize a candidate and say, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. Mm-hmm. They also don't realize that if you don't have the money and the resources,
yep.
You're dead in the water.
Exactly.
And like our campaign right now for mayor, among other things, is where the money that's being spent is record numbers, and I'm sure by the time we're done with it in May, after May we know who's the mayor.
Right, exactly.
Really,
yeah,
because we know what happens here.
Yeah, but it's funny you talk about money because when I ran the second time for Congress, representative in Congress, we did get on the ballot, but the Democratic establishment felt that they didn't want me on the ballot. So they challenged my signatures, almost every single one. Mm-hmm. Like literally like almost every single signature. I did write an op-ed which got into the...
I remember that.
Yeah. But, the lesson learned is that, if you don't know what you're doing, like I didn't know what I was doing the second time, even the second time, there's so much... if you don't have the money, if you don't have the networks, the larger networks... If you don't know how to work the system, it's really hard for anyone to just say, to try to make a difference.
Right.
It's very hard.
In this political environment, money is king.
It's king, yeah.
And we know that. And I always say, because it happens all the time in this show, I work backwards. So now I'm going to ask you about your bio, a little bit about.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Where do you come from? Were you born in Philly or?
Yeah, so I was born in Spring Garden. Mm-hmm. I was actually born on I think it's 18th and Spring Garden. That's where the community college is. And that's where I work. So I always tell people I didn't go far in life because I was born right there.
You haven't gone too far.
No.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. But I was born in the original barrio for Latinos and Puerto Ricans.
Sure.
That's where the Milagrosa was. That's where Roberto Clemente Park, which is the oldest Latino named park in the state of Pennsylvania, is. So I lived there most of my young life. My father was president of El Comité del Pueblo, that's where my activism comes from. Mm-hmm. That organization was in the 70s fighting against gentrification of the Spring Garden community, which was just horrible displacement for our people. And we lost the barrio.
Sure.
Just like we lost the barrio up here on Girard Avenue, we're losing North Square.
Como dicen en inglés, en francés, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. Entre más cambia, más la misma cosa, ¿no?
Exactly.
Y the more it changes, the more it becomes the same, because that's what you say. It's true. Now it's fighting for the neighborhood to remain at least part of it what it is right now, because it's like a wave. Is it unstoppable, this kind of gentrification? Because I don't know, they keep pushing people out of neighborhoods.
So the problem with gentrification, the way we do it in Philadelphia and probably other cities, is that there's no mechanism to protect the people that live there. There's no mechanism to make affordable housing. For example, in Fairmount, we did Broad Street Village, and then there's the Spanish Village on 19th and Green. All affordable housing, protected housing. But the protection that it had was only for like about 30 years. So if you go back to the neighborhood now, you're going to see these massive mansions in the middle of what used to be affordable housing. So for me, it's like, if we can't protect people's houses, allow them to build generational wealth, then what are we doing?
Right.
What are we doing?
Yeah, I don't know. It's insane, because my house, I live in Center City, and around my house is 2.5 million homes. And you said, like, if I had to buy my house right now, I wouldn't be able to afford it.
Me neither.
Huh?
I live right here on Howard Street, literally right there.
Yeah.
They're building, the houses across the street start at 750,000 up to 1.5 million. Then the apartments that they're building, the rents start at 1,400. So who around here can afford to rent an apartment or buy a house here?
And here's another mystery. So they have just built a high-rise right around Rittenhouse Square. It was an empty lot for a very long time. There was a theater that burned down and all that. And now it's a huge building going for millions of dollars, all these apartments. 2, 3 million, maybe that's even cheap. Who's buying that?
That's the number one question, right? Where are all these people coming from that can afford this?
Right.
It's like, so I lived in Fishtown for 20 years. A Boricua living in Fishtown, which most people don't get that. But my kids are half Asian.
They allowed you to stay.
But my kids are half Asian. So son chinito with dark hair, and they would run Fishtown. Like, my kids were safe. So, we got stories about Fishtown. But in saying that, now I lost my track. But
no, the neighborhood changes.
The neighborhood,
and you stayed.
Yeah, and so, like, right now, if you want to, I could not move into Fishtown right now if I wanted to. I couldn't even move into Howard
That's
Street.
one of those up and coming neighborhoods, and it just is that wave going north.
It is.
That it seems like endless. I don't know, where's it going to stop.
So the question, and I might get in trouble here, is why is it that we can do gentrification at one end of Kensington, and then we still have the opiate crisis at the other end of Kensington? So extreme poverty at one end, extreme wealth at the other end, in the same neighborhood.
So it's like the Cold War, East versus West.
Yeah.
No?
It's like, and you know what? Can we do better? Oh my God, yeah, we could do so much better.
Of course, yeah. There was a little bit of discussion about that last night. I don't know that anybody has the right answer. What everybody kept saying, a couple of the respondents, is that it's too complex a problem to address it in this forum, but there must be solutions.
So I wish I had gone last night, because my response would be like, yes, it's a big complex problem, pero you know what? Why don't we go after some low-hanging fruit? For example, my son went to Conwell Middle School on Clearfield Avenue. When he started school, It wasn't that bad. By the time we finished, literally my youngest son saw people die in front of him. We're walking over needles. Kids were being knocked down by free drug giveaways right in front of the school. My son's school was on lockdown 5 times in 1 year because of the gunfights outside for the corners. You know what? Let's make it safe for kids to go to school.
Right.
Go home, go to school, and come back. Let's make it safe. Let's make it safe from 7 in the morning to 5 o'clock. Let's just give me that.
So they can go and learn something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So that they don't have to hide under the desk while they're in school. I mean, it's like, is that doable? Is that doable? You know it is.
Of course it is.
We could do that.
Security. It's as though the city gave up on that part of Philadelphia.
I think both, the last 8 years, I think both city council and the mayor have failed Kensington. And
Okay, but here we have a problem. The people who might be mayor now are former city council people. Everybody from city council is running.
Exactly.
Except Reinhardt is not city council, but
she's not
everybody else is.
Everybody else is. And that's my question is all you guys have been in city council for decades. You failed Kensington.
Where were you?
Where were you? Yeah, it's like, this is a city problem. It impacts every community in the city. And it's like, how did it get so bad? How did it get so bad that there are videos on YouTube, TikTok, wherever, where you see people injecting themselves with drugs in front of police officers. So the question is, why are the police officers told hands off? Right? They'll arrest the drug dealer, but not the user. Right? So there's an equity issue there. And like, how did we get there? I did the op-ed for the Sunday Sun and for a couple of the papers. One is about the amount of needles in Kensington. So when I did the article, I think it was 4 million needles distributed in Kensington. And then the data shows that, like, I think 13% of the needles wind up in the street. That's over 300,000 needles. There's something wrong with that.
Right.
It's like, we should have never. And then when you go to these forums, which I'm not invited to anymore, I start to ask those questions about to prevention point, to impact. Why are there so many needles in the street? Well, it could be worse. I'm like, really? I said, why don't you, stop giving away, 10 needles for one and do needle exchange again? And they're like, oh, we're not doing that. Well, I first accused them of giving out 50 for every one needle. You get 50 clean ones. Then they were like, oh, no, you're lying. You bring us one, we give you 10.
No.
So I'm like, really?
No, that's more than that, right?
But
Well, Gilberto, we have to take a short break here, but on the other side of this break, we'll continue with this topic about the needles and another question that I'll have for you.
Cool.
Estamos en Usalamedia, les habla Fernando Mendez. Estamos en Compass con Gilberto Gonzalez de Philadelphia Community College Admissions. So, no se vayan, regresamos en un momento. Pagano's Market and Bar has been serving gourmet Italian foods in Center City for 3 generations. Call Matthew Pagano for all your catering needs, and during these difficult times, please mention Fernando Mendez and receive a nice discount along with free delivery. Pagano's also makes the finest gift boxes in the city for all your holiday needs. Visit paganosmarketandbar.com. Amigos de Usalamedia, estamos aquí de nuevo en Compass. Les habla Fernando Mendez. Dani Ramos dirige este programa. Estamos en una conversación con Gilberto Gonzalez de Philadelphia Community College. Gilberto, we were talking about the needle exchange and all this. I have a question for you about this, because they were talking about having these neighborhood places where the addicts could go and get all, and nobody wants them in their neighborhood, right? So what is, because I remember Edwin Dell, I think, was in favor of that. Yeah. So what do you think about that idea?
So So I think right now they're in federal court. I think it's going to happen no matter what. So the whether it happens or not, like we said earlier, there is a complicated problem, right? So if you're going to bring it into Kensington, which I hope they don't, but I got a feeling they are, you know, you got to bring everything else that comes with it. You got to bring, let's make it safe, like we said earlier, make it safe for kids to get to and from school. Why don't we feed the kids at the end of the day so they can go straight home rather than go into the bodegas where they can get shot over a drug deal and all that stuff? Why don't we clean the streets up, make it clean so that there are no more needles in the parks? You know, it's not, when they talk about safe injection site, and this is why I get yelled at a lot, right? We go to forums and people be like, oh, Gil don't live in Kensington, Gil no vale nada, you know, he's talking out of it, you know, he wants people to die. I'm like, no, I don't want people to die.
You're an unhappy activist everywhere asking the wrong questions.
What's that? Yeah.
You're an unhappy activist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like,
you're Socrates asking the wrong questions everywhere.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, it's like if you're not talking, like, and this is also political too, right? Because it's very progressive people that think the solution is a safe injection site, but those same people will not talk to us,
Right?
because they know better, right? They're people of privilege. Like for the person that is in charge of the safe house is Ron the Goldfine, who's married to the guy from the Philadelphia Inquirer. You know, and there's all this political stuff, you know, who are connected to Rendell, whatever, you know. So the thing is I'm a progressive. I consider myself a progressive, but I'm not a progressive of privilege who thinks I know better than the people that live there.
Right.
You know, you need to engage us. You need to talk to us. If this is going to happen, we have to do it together.
Right.
And right now, you know, no one's listening. You know, because the argument is, don't you want to save lives? I'm like, that is the dumbest thing to say to anyone.
But here's the problem, Gilberto, because we have a political campaign right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have this great campaign for mayor, because everybody wants to be mayor.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to delay any solution.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's going to take any steps right now, waiting to see what happens.
Yep.
So I see this maybe after the primary, somebody might do something, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
They will wait for the next mayor to see what the mayor is going to do.
And that's exactly what's going to happen. And one of the things I've told some of the mayoral candidates is that engage the people that live there. Engage the people on Somerset Street. I got family on Somerset Street.
Right.
I can get you access to people there so you can listen to them. Because, you know, for me, my worry is that the new mayor is going to go to the nonprofits, right? Which nonprofit executive directors are executive directors. They're not leaders in the community. They are executive directors. Pero the city sees them as they're the voice of the people. But again, like we said earlier, it's complex, right? Like you have these mega $1 million nonprofits in Kensington for the last decade, 2 decades. And it's like, well,
What have they done?
what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
You know, if you're, you know, and I actually, I'm going to get in trouble for this one. I met with an executive director and I said, hey, how do you measure success? And like, Gil, we don't measure success. We measure service. That's how we get our funding. And I'm like, well, don't you think it's time to measure success?
Well, in their lingo, they have this outcome. That's how they measure, by the number of people they have served during the year, which is like at the pace of a snail, because if that is all that we can afford to do, that is not a solution.
Right.
To serve 15,000 people a year or 20,000
Exactly.
in a population that is a lot bigger than that.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
And imagine, I mean, we've gone from poverty to deep poverty over the last 10, 20 years. How did we go from poverty to being in deep poverty, being one of the poorest communities in the country, when we have these, you know, mega $1 million nonprofits? You and I are going to get in trouble.
Well, no, I was on the board of Congreso, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And there is money. There are millions of dollars that go around. The thing is, how do you target them? How do you use them? Right. And as you say, get in touch with the community to see what the community needs, wants, where you can put these resources and so on. I think they do a decent job with what they have.
Right.
I think Congreso and Aspira, with the schools, for instance, they have done a good job with the charter schools.
Aspira has been doing amazing work. Unfortunately, they're losing some of the charters for the schools. I think somehow.
Why are they losing the charter schools? Because they're doing a good job for the most part.
So yeah, they are, and I see we're at community college. We see. I get all the student data, and we're working with them to bring their students to CCP, and their students are, like there's a myth. These Latinos in North Philly, they're dumb. They can't read. But you know what? That is so untrue.
Right.
Oh my God. These kids are coming in with amazing grades. They qualify for the Cato Scholarship. They're coming in at college level or right below college level. They're coming in good places. And that's, Aspira's been doing that, So should they lose their charters? Some of the community that fought to stay under Aspira, for me, this is a good example of how the city doesn't listen, right? Because some of the schools fought to stay with Aspira, but they were taken away, right? And it's like, well, rather than take it away, why don't we sit down and talk and make it work better? Right? Because this is what the community wants, right?
Yeah.
So how do we meet them where they are? Go after some of that, and I hate the phrase low-hanging fruit. Go after some of that so that the kids are even more successful.
Yes.
But there's no conversation. There's no talking here. And it's conversation, but conversation that goes nowhere.
Well, Gilberto, overall, and you tell me what you think about it, but what I see for the problems that we have in the Latino community, to rescue the Latino community from poverty, from the drug situation, from the poor schools, from the crime-infested areas, from the poor housing, lack of employment, you name it.
Yeah.
In order to do that, think of the Latino community as Germany after World War II, rebuilt, use a Marshall Plan kind of thing. It's no different from that. I mean, we are poor housing, or probably if that, because there are people who are in the streets with no home, right?
Right.
No schools.
Yep.
No jobs.
So
no business.
Let me give an example.
What do you do?
Let me give you an example of the disconnect, right? So with housing, right? We have people living basically in houses that are falling apart.
Oh, absolutely.
We have people that are living in the dark because they can't afford to pay the bills, and so on and so on and so on. So part of the solution was a developer can build, you do 10% affordable housing. Affordable is another question, right, about what's affordable, because what the city says is affordable for me is just doesn't work, and I'm saying it in a nice way. But the point is so if the developers had to build some low-income housing, now there's a stipulation in that bill that said, well, if you want to get out of it, you put this money into this pot, and then you don't have to build it.
Right.
So they gave the developers a way out so that they don't have to build affordable housing. They put money into that pot. So my question is, where's all that money?
Where's it going?
Yeah, if we're not doing the affordable housing, 10% or whatever it was, and I don't know people can criticize, I don't know the exact bill. I don't know, but it's there. But if you're not building the affordable housing and you're opting out of it by putting money in this bank, then where's the money? Yeah. Where's the money, and why aren't we investing it in housing?
During that debate, potential mayors, they were talking about this problem. I think Alan Dam said something because he's a builder. He's a developer. Mm-hmm. He doesn't actually build. He refurbishes buildings. He brings them back to life. Mm-hmm. And he said that's what he would do. He said that this land bank, that the city shouldn't own all these properties.
Agree.
Do something with that. So that made the right noise, I think, from my point of view. But that's a solution. No? Use what we have already and do a good job with that.
My God, yes. That would be, using, for example, land bank in Norris Square, which is not too far from here. In Norris Square, we have La Parcelas, we have Cesar Vivero's garden, we had Sunflower Garden. There are about 5 gardens, Kitchen Sculpture Garden. There are all these gardens that are in danger of losing lands to land bank. Right? There's also La Parcelas. We lost a couple of lots there to a developer, and it just happened. It just happened. You know, that's a historical garden. You know, Edith Brown won the Nobel Peace Prize in France for crying out loud for over these gardens and the impact in community. And we're losing these spaces because no one is willing to say the buck stops here. We're going to invest in the community.
Right.
And that's part of the problem, right? Is that they don't invest in our community. And I think, like you said earlier, we need to really rebuild and invest. You know?
Yeah, look, and they all keep saying it's a complex problem. Every problem is a complex problem. The drug problem is complex. Yep. The school problem is also very complex. Because to begin with, transportation, security, staff, you name it. There's nothing more complex than that.
Right.
I said, well, you need a comprehensive plan. And say, here is how we rescue our neighborhood.
Yep.
Give us a plan that makes sense.
Yep.
Because I'm sure they can find the money. There's a lot of money floating around.
There is.
So,
there is. And I'll give you an example. For right when and it is right. It's a complex, but there's some stuff we can do. For example, the gentrification. What they're doing is they're building all these apartment units and they're building population density for the white community. And at the same time, they're destroying population density for Latinos and blacks. You know, so how you know, that compounds the problem, because now, like I grew up down Green Street. Richard Allen Homes, which is right off of Girard Avenue, had these massive projects. And so like they said, and I testified on behalf of Richard Allen Home projects, because they said, we're going to move all these people out, over 3,000 families, and we're going to bring you back to new, beautiful homes. So when they built the new, beautiful homes, they only built about 230 new homes. So what happened to all those other thousands of people that couldn't come back?
Right.
And then they go, well, the neighborhood's better. Well, think about it. The supermarket closed, the theater closed, all the stores that used to be that were owned by black people on Girard Avenue closed because they didn't have population density. So it's like, come on, man. You know, like, am I crazy? Like, I always feel like I'm crazy because I'm like, well, why are you killing population density for us? You know, and that's part of the problem with gentrification.
Yeah, exactly. So they moved them from there to around Girard Avenue East, and then further up.
Further north, yeah.
And now, how far north is that wave going?
So I do know that they, just in doing the research for the Richard Allen Homes in particular, they moved a lot of people to Frankfurt.
Okay.
You know, they moved a lot of families. But you're talking about like 3,000 families almost, because there were thousands of units. There were two, 3 high rises plus all the low rises. I used to have a girlfriend there, so I was you know, I used to hang out there all the time. But yeah, I mean, they just moved everybody north. You know, rather than deal with the issue of poverty, why don't we keep those buildings and show people how to build generational wealth? I mean, there's so many positive things we could have done. Pero no lo sacaron a todo. They just took them out. The same thing they did with us in Norris Square. I mean, they, like, you see 3rd Street, 4th Street, like they just let all the housing just get destroyed.
Sure.
You know, and then they build new housing.
More expensive.
More expensive. Like,
unaffordable for most Hispanics.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow. Gilberto, this is quite an interesting topic, but we're never going to solve this in this space. We're going to take another short break. Estamos en Usalamedia, les habla Fernando Mendez en Compass, con Gilberto Gonzalez, hablando sobre gentrification, the drug situation, the mayor's race, you name it. Regresamos en un minuto. Amigos de Usalamedia, estamos aquí de nuevo en Campus. Dani Ramos dirige este programa, les habla Fernando Mendez en compañía de nuestro amigo Gilberto Gonzalez de Philadelphia Community College. Gilberto, before we continue with this, so your position in the college, you're in admissions.
Yes.
And so you are very much aware of the changes in the population, the Hispanic population. How are we doing there?
Mm-hmm. So, for years, the school district numbers showed that Latinos had one of the highest dropout rates, not just in Philadelphia, but in the nation. We're like at 60-something% dropout rate. So right now, my new job, which I've been in 2 years, it's in the admissions department. Before that, I was a graphic designer for like 30 years. I did art.
That's one of your multiple careers.
Yeah. But now, like, for example, the current data shows that we're working with CBOs, community-based organizations like 12 Plus, LMESC, LULAC. Mm-hmm. Those are organizations focused on, and Aspira too, organizations that are focused on education. So we've learned that for the past 2 years, and we just started getting the data, that because of the work we're doing with the CBOs that are focused on education, the Latino population at CCP increased by 47%. In the same thread, those organizations, the other demographics, grew by I think 30%. So then we put all the other schools together where we're not doing the work, right? We're going to get there, but we're not there yet. The population actually went down. Latinos went down by 7%. The other demographics went by 23%. Mm-hmm. So applications are down, but with the CBOs, the applications are up. And we're looking at hopefully getting the retention numbers in November, because I think because we have those CBOs at the campus now, they're working with us, making sure the students don't fall through the cracks. I think that the retention number is going to be really good too for Latinos. Because that's one of the moving parts of how we help North Philadelphia and Kensington.
That's wonderful. I've been teaching in Camden County College, and I was teaching Spanish and ESL. Mm-hmm. And I saw very promising Hispanic kids. I mean, great talent. Mm-hmm. They're just sort of eager to learn. You can see them, and you sort of wish you could give them more, So I'm sure we have that talent.
Yeah.
And give us the opportunity. Put them through the door.
Thank you. And that's it. Like, if you look at, there's a myth. Latinos in North Philly don't want to work. So Puerto Ricanos son vagos. They're lazy. The Dominicans, they don't care about anything. The Colombians, whatever. There's all this myth about us. But when
no more than the rest of the population.
Thank you.
Yeah?
It's but for me, our youth, man, oh my God, I meet with youth every day, and they're like, I want. Yeah. But how do I get it? So our job the past 2 years has been really focused in building these pipelines to CCP from the community. You want kids to stop dealing drugs. You want to start building generational wealth. Start getting them into the educational. Because to be honest, education saved my life. If it wasn't for my high school teacher, who, because at that time in the 70s, there was a lot of gang violence, and so, I wasn't in a good place. Pero with the help of my teacher, with the help of Aspira, because there was an Aspira chapter at my school, that just kind of turned my life around, and that works.
Yes.
And that's where we need to invest.
I drove through your former neighborhood almost every day for a few decades. I was a teacher at St. Joe's Prep. And I can see that the few Hispanics that were able to afford that tuition always did extremely well. And so those are examples you say, oh my God, we need more opportunity. When I was on the board of Congreso, again, one of the foundations that we started, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and all that, the board at one point resisted the idea of getting into education. Ironically, one of the opponents was Pedro Ramos, who ended up running the Philadelphia school system for a while. Pedro said, that's not our brand. We're going to risk, the name of Congreso. And fortunately, there were a couple of members, and we had the support of Ken Trujillo, who was the head of the board. Abelardo Lecter and I pushed for the schools, and we started doing the charter school. And we found a great leader in Wanda Novales. I don't know if you know Wanda. We just said, Wanda, here's a telephone. We're going to start a school, start doing whatever. And that was the origin of the Pan American Charter School, which, by the way, I gave it the name. The Pan American Charter was my idea. So
Very nice.
I take credit for that, because I think one of the significant things that you give kids the opportunity to get a good education, and you see the byproduct of that. Yeah. So that's what we need, more leadership in that sense. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate about the job that you're doing at community college, because without the presence of key people like yourself in these colleges, there's no pressure inside saying we need more students from minorities, from not only Hispanics. I mean, forget it, because Philadelphia is really a multicultural society. We need more of that.
Yes.
And obviously for us, Hispanics, it's our main field of interest, but certainly for all minorities, to give them an opportunity.
Right. So just one note real quick. One of the problems that we're having, and we're trying to fix it, is, a lot of kids just want to get certificates. And the problem is that certificates, a lot of them are not funded by financial aid. So, but the thing at CCP is you can get stackable certificates that are college credits where you can still go get an associate, still get a bachelor's.
They can be validated?
Yes. And it's but the thing is that a lot of financial aid isn't keeping pace with the reality of our communities. And that's the federal government, right? But by the same token, we have a lot of kids that are independent adults, have been raising themselves, live by themselves. If you're not 25, financial aid is not going to give you anything, because they consider you a dependent of a parent, even though you don't have any contact communication with your parents. It's so financial aid. Again, this is where our policymakers need to get on the ball.
That's when you need to change whatever qualifications you need.
Exactly.
Wow. So usually bureaucracy gets in the way of these things.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Like Obamacare and all that. That reminds me of the joke about Obamacare. The people say, what do you think of Obamacare? Oh, I can't stand that. It's ridiculous. I don't know why they have that. Well, how about the Affordable Care Act? Oh, I'm in favor of that. So, well, do you realize it's the same thing? Obamacare and the Affordable Care. But people don't know that.
Right.
But they hear the name Obamacare, immediately it's it's off.
Right.
I don't support that.
Right.
Why? Well, the nation is divided in so many ways. It's tragic. The division that we have right now, politically speaking.
It is.
It's tragic what's happening.
It is.
Nobody wants to listen. There's no dialogue. There's no conversation. We might disagree on some things, but come on, let's talk.
Right. There's middle ground for everything to move it forward. Right. For example, with education and financial aid, it's there's some stuff that we can push for and change it so that kids can have access. But again, it's one of the first things that Biden pushed for was a free 2-year college. Once he became president, that's the first thing he took off the table. It's come on, man. That's the one thing we should have kept.
I know.
Was 2 years of free college.
The student debt forgiveness, though, that's a good step.
That's a good step. But for me, the better one would have been free community college.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Because, look, the money we invest in weapons, I'm not saying it's not necessary, all of it. Mm-hmm. Some of it is. Yeah. But there's billions of dollars that we waste in building more and more weapons that we would never use, which we could put into education.
Yes.
So what we need is a president who gets there with the right idea, the mindset that instead of building more aircraft carriers and more faster attack planes and all that, that we can invest that money in education.
Right, and targeted investment does work. Like, for example, I worked with the Philanthropy Network, and we gave out $800,000 in 1 year to grassroots organizations in Kensington. So there's a young man who was able to buy a haircut van. He's a barber. So he'll go into neighborhoods all over the city now in communities of needs and do free haircuts. You know, you go like, well, what's good about that?
How does he support himself, though?
What's that?
How does he support himself?
I think he has a full-time job.
Oh, okay.
He definitely has a job, but he does this as a side.
So,
I think he works as a barber, but then with the van, he'll travel throughout the city doing the free haircuts. But my point is that here's a kid who was given money to do something. And you say, well, why do you need a haircut? Well, you know what? If you look great and you go get a job, there's a good chance you'll get a job if you are groomed really nicely. Right? That's just one little thing that means so much.
Absolutely. The whole idea with these agencies also that provide free clothing for people who are looking for jobs because they should look presentable.
Right. Exactly. And part of the other moving part is housing. Why don't we have some kind of hotel where people can have an address? Right, because they need that address and they need access to computer, look for jobs. It's like there's so many little things we could do, man. It's like, you know what? It's not a big investment, but it's just some stuff that can be done now.
But we need somebody with access to the funds, to the money, who can say, here, you need that money, here it is.
Someone who has the cojones to butt up against the system and say, no, let's get it done.
We're going to take another brief pause here in Usalamedia. Estamos en una conversación con Gilberto Gonzalez sobre un montón de asuntos, una gran cantidad de problemas que tenemos que estamos tratando de resolver esta mañana, pero yo creo que no va a pasar. Así que no se vayan, regresamos en un momento.
Usalamedia.
Amigos de Usalamedia, estamos aquí de nuevo en Campus. Estamos en una conversación con Gilberto González. Estamos hablando de muchas cosas. A veces, yo quiero preguntarte, Gilberto, ¿qué pasa con esto de que ya no estás interesado en presentar tu candidatura? You don't want to run for anything.
So when you get, like the last time I ran, which was last year for representative in Congress,
right?
We had so many people collecting signatures. We made it on the ballot to only get taken out because we didn't have the money, we didn't have the resources. But also, having people follow me around was really uncomfortable. But those are tactics, right? Those are tactics that people use when they don't want you to run for office, And it was, for me, like, it was hit too close to home. I mean,
they came to your house?
Yeah, I mean, there was a photographer taking pictures of us, and when I went up to him, I said, "What are you doing taking pictures?" He said, "I was told to take pictures," and he won't give me much information. But I'm like, "Yo, you're shooting pictures of me and my family."
Yeah, who told him to take pictures?
Exactly.
Why?
Exactly. He, and it could have been, or I don't know why that happened, but it just made me feel very uncomfortable.
Oh, I'm sure.
In particular with my family, and that wasn't cool. And also in just meeting with folks, like I said earlier, they told me that they weren't afraid that I was going to win. That was not the problem. The problem is they were afraid of the message that I was going to send, because I would have gotten enough votes to send the wrong message, right? And that message is that Latinos have power. If, for example, and like Carlos Matos is a ward leader, Danilo is a ward leader.
Right.
In those wards, there are like 10, 12,000 Latinos in each of those wards, but less than 2,000 come out to vote in every election. So see, that's where the problem is, right? Because the last 30 years, whether people want to accept it or not, there have been tactics of voter suppression against Latinos.
Right.
You know, so these tactics have worked. That's why they're only out of 10, 12,000 people, only 2,000, less than 2,000
intimidate
vote.
Latinos.
Intimidate. I've seen it at the voting polls,
Right.
where some people unethically go into the polls with seniors, do whatever they do behind the curtain, and the senior goes like, "Oh, porque yo no sé qué pasó." They don't want to go back and deal with that. Or you go in there, they'd be like, no, you need to vote for this person. No me haga eso, electo. That's all tactics that have been used in our community for decades, right?
I know people who did it.
See, my point is that the message I was going to send, we would have motivated enough people to start participating in the process. Mm-hmm. But then the reality is, the more people participate, the stronger we are, right? Against this Democrat. Because the problem in Philadelphia, and the problem in Philly is the Democratic establishment. Yes. Right? Like it or not, that is the truth.
You have just mentioned my pet peeve about the political situation in this city. Since 1953, under the control of the Democratic Party, and what have they done for the city?
Exactly. Just think about it. The Democrats have been, the fact that we've gone from a city that had plenty of jobs, that we were okay. And Latinos in the 60s and 70s will tell you we struggled. We didn't know what it was to be poor. For example, in my house, we were poor, but we didn't know poverty because we had food on the table. We had a nice place, clean place to live. Everybody worked. In the summers, I went to the Pepas, picked blueberries. We all made a little bit of money here and there. The family was working together. But now today, it's like the poverty is just really bad. I mean, it's just compounded. It's worse than it's ever been.
Yes.
They say in Philadelphia, it costs for a family of 4 to live in Philly in a house, you need to make $60,000, $70,000 a year. How many people in North Philadelphia make $60,000, $70,000 a year?
Oh. I think probably the average income is probably like 25, closer to 25, 30 than to 50.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, what is the Democratic Party? I'm not trying to they're the problem. Just to be honest, they are the problem. Their decisions and their policies have just not been supportive of Latinos. Right. Like they said, another person, I can't say his name, but he was like, they will never support a Puerto Rican for Congress in this city. And they're telling, and I appreciate the honesty. Appreciate the honesty, but it also is very clear to me of what the problem is. You know?
It's like they wouldn't support a woman for president. It's the same thing. I mean, minorities and women, they are not wanted at the top.
Yeah, but yet they hold on to power. They won't let people like me jump in the race, try to change things. Even at an advocacy and grassroots level, we're fighting this huge machine. And it's tough. It's tough. A lot of us, like for example, with the philanthropy network, we bought in $800,000 to Kensington. That was a lot of work. That was a lot of work. And for me, that it did impact. Because again, you have young people with their organizations impacting, whether it be through haircuts, whether it be through temporary housing, clothing, whatever it is. Locally, people are cleaning. There are block parties that are really awesome now. In the middle of that, they'll have cops at the end, allow the children to play for a couple of hours, pero then cuando se van, the problems are back. But again, there's some of that low-hanging fruit money that's doing some positive, but it's not the party. It's not the Democratic Party, though. No. They're the ones that, for me, have allowed this stuff to happen.
Sure.
And I'm sorry. I just have to.
People like Maria Quiñones ran against the wishes of the party. That happens more often than not, that they don't want to support people they don't like. That I don't know who they are exactly, but I mean, we know some of the
So
leaders,
I'll just
but
say that the president
Yeah.
of the Democratic Party here is Robert Brady.
Yeah.
For me, to be honest,
we know.
he's one of the things that has impacted the Latino community
In a negative way.
in a negative way.
Absolutely.
You know.
And that has to be said. I mean, there are people who stand in the way, and that's
Yeah.
one person. I don't know how much longer he can be in power, but he's only one person that did a lot of damage already.
Yep.
When I was in the board of Congreso, we tried to get Latinos into some of the unions, Teamsters and all that. They wouldn't hear it. So that is changing a little bit, only because of the loss of population. Now they have to go to the Latinos because they don't have enough people.
They don't have enough people.
So,
yeah.
which brings up the whole employment situation, because there was a great resignation around the country. People don't want to go back to work at an office, the usual jobs and so on. So they go begging. There are many jobs that go unfilled because. Is that an advantage for Latinos? I don't know.
So-
Do we need more training?
So that's the thing, that a lot of these jobs, you know, you need certificates, you need training, you need education. So it's like, for example, there's a huge need for employees in licenses and inspection, right? But you need to know the codes. You need to learn the codes. You need to learn about construction. You need to get certified on all this stuff. So our goal at community college, I mean, we have some of the certificates that you need. So hopefully you will come there and get some of those certificates. But the thing is that most of our people are not gonna, they're not in those pipelines.
No.
But we need to get our people in those.
How
pipelines.
difficult is it to get one of those certificates, license and inspections, for instance?
So it'll take some work, because you have to, there are all these codes that you have to learn. So
Okay, I understand that, but in terms of time,
I think you could do a certificate in 6 months.
okay, cost,
It depends on the certificate, right? Like some certificates are like 5,000, some certificates are like 6,000. The problem is that some of those certificates are not covered by financial aid.
Right.
So, but we do have a scholarship that people can apply to.
okay.
So when you apply to those certificates, at the same time you apply to the scholarship, and then you're in line. If you get the scholarship, then you can get your certificate. But again, there are only so many scholarships.
Right. But how well known is that?
Not too many people know about
No.
it. So my goal is that's one of the things I'm working with.
Spread
is
the word.
Spread the word. If we spread the word through our CBOs, like we're trying to do right now, I
Right.
think we're going to be successful.
So you can talk directly to potential students.
Yeah. So let me tell you, right
ahead.
now there are two great things at community
This
college.
is your camera here.
One is the Cato Scholarship, right? The Cato Scholarship, if you're graduating from a school in Philadelphia, even if you don't have a social security number, even if you're undocumented, you can qualify for that scholarship. And even if you come in at an ESL level of 094, right, and 084, you can still qualify for that scholarship, which is a scholarship that if you do qualify, it will cover everything. It will cover tuition. You get a monthly stipend. You get books. You get all kinds of services that come with that scholarships. And again, Latinos, if you're undocumented, you're graduating from school in Philadelphia, you can apply for that. If you're in the 9th grade, start preparing now for that scholarship. The other thing is with the certificates, when you apply for some of their certificates under business and industry, in that same application online, there's a link for you to apply for a scholarship that will cover that certificate program that's not covered by financial aid. So when you apply for that scholarship, you apply for that program, you'll be in line and in consideration for that scholarship. If you get it, that means you'll get into the program, complete the certificate, and a lot of those certificates lead to good paying jobs. Not regular salary jobs, but decent salaries, livable salaries, because that's what we need. I'm sorry, $15 an hour is nothing. Yeah. I know a lot of, a lot of people, $15 an hour,
It's
amazing.
not a living wage.
It's not a living wage.
No. Well, Gilberto, believe it or not, we have come to the end of this edition of, you have to come back.
I definitely.
So, because this was a warm-up. So, hemos estado en compañía de Gilberto Gonzalez, Philadelphia Community College, admissions. He possesses a great deal of knowledge and information, It's been a pleasure to have a conversation with you. A ustedes, muchas gracias por su sintonía. Los esperamos hasta la próxima. Se despide Fernando Mendez y Dani Ramos produjo este programa.